this is Anupa from Role Model Rebels. Today we have Val Esway, who is a fantastic and lovely human being and also an HR and recruiting coach. Over to you, Val.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Anupa. I'm really glad to be here and share whatever info that might be helpful to the role model rebel community.
Yes. So today we'll be talking about the recruitment and the job scenario in Web3 because there are a lot of questions that have come up, with people wanting to know what do they do, how do they go about it. So I thought you would be the perfect person to, answer those questions.
Sure, I'll do my best. Fire away.
Yeah. So how does a typical application look like? If you could, talk about the five most important points that applicants should look into.
Sure. So I will begin by just prefacing this by saying that I'm just one person in a whole big wide world, and different companies, different organizations, different recruiters, different hiring managers will all have their own tips about what resonates for them. But I do think across the board, some things that can be really helpful for people applying in, specifically looking for Web3 types of roles. First of all, you will see probably that a lot of these roles are remote. So just because a role is remote, it doesn't mean that necessarily that the company can hire in any location. So as best you can, try to determine whether or not they would hire in your location remote, because some companies, just because of the legal and compliance issues, would not be able to hire all over the world. But sometimes they don't publish that information. So if it's not published, don't let that stop you. And the other thing that I would say is I always recommend that you have a clear summary statement, clear and concise. Don't need to get too wordy there, but you want to address the requirements of the role and why you feel that you are a good fit for it. And now, what I come across a lot with folks who are making a career transition into Web3 is that they may not have direct experience in Web3. So if you don't have direct paid experience, then highlight your projects at the top of your resume. And you may be saying, what projects? I don't have any projects. Well, funny you should ask. Then go out there and start doing some. And I know that probably sounds maybe easier said than done. Like, how am I going to find a project? Well, you'll find that Web3 is really big on community. The crypto, blockchain, DAOs, gaming, really big on community. So start studying, start researching, start finding the community that looks like it could be interesting to you. And then try and figure out what needs there are and see how you can get involved. So just because you haven't achieved paid experience in this field doesn't mean that you don't have experience, right? So definitely you want to highlight any type of project or experience that you have, whether it's paid or not. And yeah, those would be probably my main tips. And then I guess maybe one other tip would be, this probably would apply like no matter what industry you're in. Try to make sure that within your bullet points of your experience that you are directly addressing what the job requirements are so that you can
Yes.
show
Yeah.
that you're
Yeah.
you're in alignment there. Yep.
Thank you. And I think that's really important because clarity in our application is very important. And like what you said, even if you don't have a project, you can always create, like, let's say, scenario-based projects that show how transferable skills, can be seen. And in your opinion, when people want to transfer from Web 2 to Web 3, are there any skill sets that you really think stand out that people can look into, or even if they have their own niche skill set, how do you think that they can showcase that transfer?
Sure. So again, I'm probably going to sound like a broken record that, and just saying that
Yeah.
this is my perspective, but it's also somewhat what I have observed from different hiring managers and different recruiters that I've spoken with. One thing that I think really stands out would be adaptability. And that can be a little bit hard to pinpoint, right? What does that even mean? But
Yeah.
this industry is moving so fast and it's changing so fast. And so the people that do well in this space are people that can learn quickly, can take on new challenges, and don't get ruffled, right? So let's say maybe you have a background in, maybe you've been with a company that went through a merger and an acquisition. Maybe you have worked at a very small early stage startup where things might have been chaotic and there was no order.
Yeah. Yeah.
That can actually be seen as a strength, right?
Yeah.
Because that, if you did well in that job, you can show that you can bring a lot of transferable skills. So adaptability, continuous learning, and then, other skills I would say is if you look at a Web3 company, they have the same business needs or many of the same business needs as any other type of company. So they need marketers, they need biz dev people, they need customer success. So you want to kind of find that sweet spot of where you are showing that you have the skills in your particular role and that you can bring them to this industry. And so showing that you understand the industry also, I think, is pretty key, right? So you want to have a basic understanding of, what is blockchain? What is a wallet? What are the use
Yeah.
cases for decentralization? And so, if you don't have that fundamental knowledge, a good place to start would be to just start learning. And of course, you and I both know that Shefi is a great place to do that, but there's a lot of other resources out
Absolutely.
there too. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, there I can see a lot of transferable knowledge, which I still use with a lot of my clients today, which I very proudly can say so. And that actually leads me to the next question, and which is something that I've also faced as a Web3 service designer. What is the level of technical knowledge do you need when you transfer a skill set? And let's say somebody who's not applying for a technical role, not a
Mhm.
developer, not a blockchain architect, but something which is more thinking, thought based, or more strategy, um, to an extent, maybe design. How much of it is important?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that maybe just to add to what I already said, like understanding the fundamentals is a great place to start, right? Like, so you can be very good at your job at, say, social media, okay?
Yeah,
That you can bring your social media skills to a Web3 company. But to be in that role, running social media for a Web3 company, you have to really understand, you have to understand the landscape, right? Because you can't, so if you don't know those terms, if you don't know the different, I guess I come back, just keep coming back to terminology, right? Like if you don't know what blockchain is,
yeah,
for instance, that being one of the more common words, that people know in this space, it's going to be really hard for you to probably run social media for this
yeah,
organization. So,
yeah,
um, yeah. So, and then, other like technical skills, I think it really depends on the job. So let's say you're working as product manager, you're going to have a lot more technical knowledge, I think, than say, someone who is doing another role. I don't know which one, but a
yeah.
product
I get
manager.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
And in when companies are kind of creating these roles, and there might not, because this is something that in conversation I've heard a lot of people saying, how because there are companies that say that if send in your resume, let's see if we can find a place for you. Do you think that's a good way of getting more visibility, talking to the hiring manager? What do you think would be ways that would be a good way, apart from just looking at a job board, in getting the job that you want?
Yeah, so reaching out to a recruiter or a hiring manager can be one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle that ideally they all work really well together. So networking, I think, is huge. Having conversations is huge because what I've also observed is that some companies, they may not have a very robust hiring process. They might be the founder doing the initial hiring. And so, they may approach things differently, which is why I encourage people to follow the companies where they are. So, a lot of the crypto companies are on X. And so that would be one way to kind of like, add a little that tool to your whole overall strategy, is to connect with those folks and follow them where they are. But so networking is very big. Having conversations is great. And what you might find throughout those conversations is that you might find out about opportunities that you might not have seen on a job board, right?
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
that person is doing 500 things in the company and they just didn't post it. And so someone referred you and then suddenly you're having this conversation. So I do think that being proactive in many ways is always helpful, actually, no
Yeah.
matter what the industry, but definitely helpful in this industry.
And I think, like, and from the way that the Web3 is kind of shaping up, like you said, understanding the key technologies, the key approaches,
Mhm.
philosophies, whether it's something as just decentralization, or how, let's say, keys work, you know um where do you see applicants getting more, let's say, I wouldn't say confused, but like, where do you see them more inclined to apply to roles that are like highly technical, or to let's say a newbie wanting to shift,
Mhm.
or to something which is transferable, or can they
Mhm.
learn on the job? Because this is also a conversation that a lot of people I've heard saying that, okay, I mean, it might not be something I know at all, but can I learn
Mhm.
on the job?
Mhm. Again, I think that's pretty specialized to the company. So I can tell you that for sure, one head of talent at a company in this space that I spoke with said to me, we really need people who already have a very solid understanding because we run a very lean operations
Mm.
and we don't do a lot of onboarding. So basically, we can't do hand holding. So we want people who can come in and start executing quickly. Okay, that's one company. I've also spoken with a recruiter at another company, and I believe that person actually came into Shefi and attended one of my workshops. This was one of my Ask a Recruiter Q&A sessions, and that recruiter said, we look for passion, we look for drive, we look for people who are excited about the types of problems that we're solving. And so maybe if they don't have all the skills and they don't tick all the boxes, there can be an opportunity for us to train them and onboard them. So I think that it can vary from organization to organization, and I'm always encouraging people that if there is an area where you feel personally that your skills are lacking, get to work trying to fill that gap however you can.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think that's so important, because passion and just self-drive motivates you to do
Mhm.
so many things. And
Yeah.
that leads me to my next question, is that what motivated you to do what you're doing today? Like, what was your journey like?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. My path has not been straightforward, right? I've zigged and zagged. So I've worked in the startup space for a long time, and I've mostly worked in SaaS companies, and I got my first job in a Web3 company only in 2022. And going into that role, I knew what blockchain was, sort of. I knew what crypto was. That's about all I knew. And so Shefi showed up in my LinkedIn feed and I saw it and I thought I should really that looks like where I should go to really deepen my understanding here because of course I was going to be hiring people at this company that I was working at, Absolute Labs. And so, I felt like I needed this knowledge so that I could properly onboard people into this company. And I will not lie, I was intimidated to join Shefi. Why? I don't know.
Really?
I was, yeah. Not because of Maggie or anything at all related to that.
Yeah.
I believe that, I don't know. I think it's just like the fear of doing something new. Uh, Maybe I was feeling like it's going to be hard for me to learn this stuff. I don't know. We all have our insecurities, but it was my experience. There was very quickly proved that there was nothing to be intimidated by. And it's just, as you and I both know, it's an incredible community. It's super supportive. I learned so much and I continue to learn even now from this community. But so not long after joining, I was very active. And this goes back to what I spoke about earlier about how it's important to contribute to a community and be a part of it. So I was very active in the Shefi Discord and giving people advice on resumes and career stuff. And then so someone in Shefi asked me to do a workshop on resumes. And I said, okay, yeah, sure. And that was kind of how it was all, that's how it all started. And so then I started giving the workshops regularly. And then I started talking to Maggie and then here we are today. So, and so I'm still involved. As you know, I run these monthly career workshops
Which are
within Shefi.
fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you. I love doing them. And I learn every time because as you know, I bring in other recruiters and leaders in this space to talk to them about what they know and what they see that can be helpful to the community. And so I feel like it's like a win-win-win all the way around. And I love it. So that's a little bit about my journey.
Amazing, amazing. And yeah, so as like closing thoughts, what would be, let's say, three takeaways that you would like our members to just know when they're applying to, a field such as this?
Yeah, I would say even if you're feeling uncomfortable, just do it anyway. I mean, who cares, right? Like, honestly, what is the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
push yourself to keep learning and keep trying new things. And as I said earlier, if you feel that there is a gap in your knowledge, always be proactive
Mhm.
about trying to fill in that gap. And then always be networking. Some people think that networking is just, they have weird connotations about it. Networking is just human to human, getting to know each other. That's really what it is at the core level. And if you approach networking and meeting people as an opportunity to just get to know another human being, it doesn't have to be transactional. There doesn't have to be
Yeah,
pressure.
yeah,
And
yeah.
networking is really big in this, especially in the Web3 community. So I encourage you to immerse yourself in that, even if it is something that is potentially a little bit out of your comfort zone. Because when we're out of our comfort zone is usually the place where we're really learning and growing.
We really, exactly. Amazing. Thank you so much, Val. And how do people get in touch with you?
Great question. So LinkedIn is a great place to find me. Maybe you can share my LinkedIn profile.
Yes, we will.
I
Yes.
I share regular career growth and leadership and all things job search tips there. And there's also a link in my bio at the top that shows the different ways that you could find me if you wanted to work with me as a company that wants to hire me for recruiting or as an individual who would like a little bit of coaching on job search or leadership types of things. And yeah, that's where you can find me. And of course, you'll see me in Shefi. So if you're joining, come on and see me over there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Val.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. I love what y'all are doing with role model rebels. We all need more of those in our lives.
Yes, and that's why we're so happy that you're part of our community, sharing your knowledge and your experience to actually create an impact for someone else. And that's the aim of what we do.
Awesome. Well, we're very much in alignment there because that is what I love to do. All right. Thank you.